Bah Ghoulie Show is brought to you by OTR Halloween Holidays.
The Mutual Broadcasting System presents The Mysterious Traveler, written, produced, and directed by Robert A. Arthur and David Cogan, and starring tonight two of radio's outstanding personalities, Frank Reddick and Jan Miner, in an original play titled Death Has a Cold Breath.
This is The Mysterious Traveler, inviting you to join me on another journey into the realm of the strange and the terrifying. I hope you will enjoy the trip, and it will thrill you a little and chill you a little as we discover that death has a cold breath. Your name is Andy Marlowe. Once you were a very successful publicity agent. But this morning, as you slouch behind your big mahogany desk, you feel terrible. You're nursing a hangover. You're worrying about the IOUs you've been passing out the last few months to certain rather tough individuals who run gambling houses. You're slipping fast. Your bankroll is gone. Your girl, Julie, who's just as hard and beautiful as the diamond she loves to wear, is looking for greener pastures. And you're on the skids. Unless you come up with a smart idea. You stare at your appointment pad with bleary eyes. The first name on it is Harold Farrington. Harold Farrington, the matinee idol of 20 years back. Now he's a has-been ham. You almost tell your assistant to send him away, but you change your mind and have him sent in.
Andy, old boy, you're looking splendid. I just got back from Florida. Thought I'd drop in and say hello.
Sit down, Harold, and cut out the hot air. You haven't the price of a trip to South Jersey, much less Florida, and I know it.
Always bluff and direct, Andy. That's what I like about you. Yes, it's embarrassing to admit it, but I am financially substandard at the moment.
If it's a touch, Harold, the answer is no.
I wouldn't dream of asking you for a loan, Andy. I want to retain you, to enlist your services to put me once again on the front pages. Remember 6 months ago, you dreamed up that idea of a national theater that I hope to found? That got me nice headlines, Andy.
Yes, but you didn't get a job out of it. I'm going to be frank with you, Harold.
Of course, old man, of course.
The only way you'll ever work on Broadway again is to get a job in the street cleaning department.
Andy, but I know you're only joking. Just remind the public of me and the women will clamor to see me again. I've always had success with the women, you know.
The answer is no. I like to get paid for my services.
But you will, Andy. 6 months ago, for your last campaign, I made you sole beneficiary in my will. You'll collect when I die.
Sole beneficiary in your will. What a laugh. I think I fell for your line about having trust funds that would pay off when you died. I checked up later. You don't even own a spare suit of clothes.
I admit I exaggerated. I confess it.
Oh, that's mighty white of you.
However, this might interest you. A letter that was forwarded to me last week. Read what it says.
6 pages in a woman's handwriting, reeking with gardenia perfume. Phooey.
It's from a wealthy widow in Boston. 25 years ago, she was an admirer of mine. Her name is Abby Wilson, Mrs. Abby Wilson, and she's worth $500,000.
Harold, you bore me. So does Mrs. Abby Wilson. Now get to the point, will you?
I am, Andy. She's ill, slowly dying. And having read about my plan to start a theater which I would run in the interests of a free, untrammeled stage, she decided to make the dream possible by leaving me all her money when she dies. Now, don't you see, Andy, that will of mine is now worth something. When Mrs. Abby Wilson dies, I'm a rich man.
Pipe dreams, Harold. She's probably a crackpot in an old lady's home. And to show you what I think of your will, in which I'm sole beneficiary, let's see, it ought to be in this drawer here. Yeah, here it is. Now, watch, Harold. There's your precious will where it belongs, in the wastebasket. Now, get out of here, you old has-been. I'm busy.
Your exasperation finally has gotten the better of you, Andy. You kick Harold Farrington out. Then, feeling worse than ever, you slump in your chair again. You're still slouched there half an hour later when the telephone rings.
Hello.
Hello, darling.
Oh, hello, Julie.
My. The Wonder Boy sounds as if he had a hangover this morning.
Oh, I'm all right. Just catching a little cold, that's all.
Oh, then you'll probably be glad to have me break our date for tonight.
Break our date?
Yes. I won't be able to make it tonight, Andy. So sorry.
Why won't you be able to make it? I've had those tickets for weeks.
I'm flying out to the coast at midnight, sweetheart. Bill Wentworth is throwing a really big house party, and then a cruise on his yacht afterward.
What?
He phoned last night to invite me, and I accepted.
Julie, you can't walk out on me like this. Just because Wentworth has money.
And you have charm, Andy. But the charm's been wearing a little thin lately. And so has your bankroll. So goodbye, darling. See you around.
Julie, wait. The hard-boiled little gold diggers. I'll get another bankroll somehow. And she'll come running back. I know Julie.
For a moment, Andy, you daydream about being rich again. But you're rudely interrupted by the sound of an argument outside and your office door opens.
Hello, Marlowe. Your office boy didn't want to let me in, but I persuaded him I had business with you.
Oh, hello, Rocky. I'm glad you dropped in.
Yeah.
I've been planning to get in touch with you. I've got a big deal in the fire.
Huh?
Yeah, gonna get a big fee out of it.
Well, I hope you do, Andy, for your sake.
So, Rocky, I just wanted to ask you if you could just wait a few days on those IOUs. I'll really be flush.
Well, nobody ever said Rocky Smith wasn't a reasonable man. What's your idea of a few days?
Well, naturally, I don't get my fee until my client begins to see himself in the headlines, so... Well, how about 60 days, Rocky?
Huh. Because I never got past the 8th grade, Marlowe. But 60 seems to me considerably more than a few. I'll let you have 3 days. And that's all.
When he's gone, you hastily pour yourself a drink, Andy. Just then your telephone rings. You let it ring. What can it be but more bad news? Finally, the ringing gets on your nerves. You answer it.
Hello?
Hello, is this Mr. Andrew Marlowe?
Yes, this is Marlowe speaking.
Well, my name is Phelps, Mr. Marlowe. I'm calling from Boston.
Yes, Mr. Phelps.
Well, Mr. Marlowe, I'm very anxious to contact Mr. Harold Farrington. I believe he's a client of yours.
Well, you could call it that. Yeah, he was here. Left about half an hour ago.
Oh, well, can you possibly locate him for me, Mr. Marlowe? It's rather important. You see, I represent the estate of the late Mrs. Abby Wilson. I'm anxious...
Wait a minute. Did you say the estate of the late Mrs. Abby Wilson?
Well, yes, Mr. Marlowe. Mrs. Wilson died day before yesterday. And it appears that her new will leaves everything she owns to Mr. Farrington. I believe she was once an admirer of his.
Oh, yes. I know all about that, Mr. Phelps. I'll tell you, I'll locate Harold for you. You just leave it to me.
Well, I'd certainly appreciate it, Mr. Marlowe. I'd like him here for the probating of the will. Of course, as soon as the news gets out...
He goes on talking, but you're not listening, Andy. Your mind is working like lightning now. So that crazy story of Harold's about a rich widow leaving him everything was true. Like a fool, you tore up Harold's will, making you his heir. There must be some way to save the situation. Then it comes to you. The whole plan in one brilliant inspiration.
So, Mr.
You
Marlowe,
interrupt
I
the
want to
lawyer.
stress...
Oh, Mr. Phelps, excuse me, please, but...
Yes, Mr. Marlowe?
if you let me handle all the publicity, I can keep it dignified and still make it a valuable asset to Mr. Farrington's plan.
Oh, yes, I can understand that.
Now, if you'll see to it that nobody else hears about this until you and me and Mr. Farrington can get together...
Why, I think that can be managed, Mr. Marlowe.
Good. Then I'm going to hang up now and find Farrington. And when I do, I'll phone you. So, goodbye for now, Mr. Phelps.
You hang up and snatch that torn-up will from the wastebasket. Carefully, you paste the torn will together with Scotch tape. Then you set out to find Harold Farrington. You try his rooming house first.
No, Mr. Farrington ain't in. I don't know where he is, and I don't care. Unless he comes back with the $35,000 rent he owes me. You might try Tim O'Sullivan's saloon round the corner. That's where he usually hangs out.
You hurry to the corner saloon, but the actor's not there. Desperately perspiring in your anxiety, you try all the other local saloons. At last you find him. In a corner table in the cheapest bar of them all. You can see he's almost pie-eyed.
Well, this is my good old friend Andy. Have a drink. It's not good liquor, but it's cheap. That's his great recommendation. It's cheap.
Yes, I'm sorry, Harold. I can't drink now. I've hunted you up to apologize. I was only joking this morning. I am going to put on a campaign for you. I'm going to get your name in all the papers.
Well, that's mighty fine, Andy. Calls for a celebration. Waiter, 2 more.
You sit down, Andy, controlling your impatience. You bring out the damaged will and get Harold to initial each torn section. Then you tell him about your publicity scheme for him. He's to disappear, you explain, after threatening to kill himself.
Threaten to kill myself, eh? To die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, and there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. Shakespeare, Andy. All right, sounds like a good scheme. I'll cooperate.
Your plan is working, Andy. Working beautifully. You get Harold Farrington into the phone booth. You phone Ross of the Daily Ledger, and Farrington talks to him.
Hello, Ross. This is Harold Farrington. Just wanted to tell you I'm going to play a big role soon in The Tragedy of Man. I'm going to play the corpse. What am I talking about? I'm just trying to tell you, old boy, the time has come to ring down the curtain. Going to end the little drama of Harold Farrington. Hello. Andy, how do you like that? He said I was drunk, and he hung up.
Yes, your scheme is working beautifully. You have Harold Farrington phone all the critics and tell them he's going to kill himself. But then Farrington collapses. Desperately, you realize you have to have help. You telephone Julie. You persuade her to bring her car and meet you. You show her the will. Tell her about Mrs. Abby Wilson.
Surely, Julie, you understand. If this will is legal, I'll come at $500,000 soon.
I understand that, darling. But just how are you going to collect? I mean, suppose dear Harold decides to stay alive and then changes his will.
He won't. I mean, how long can he live drinking as he does? He's on his last legs.
You mean you'll keep him supplied with free liquor until he obligingly drinks himself to death, Andy, dear?
Yes, something like that. I haven't time to tell you the details now, but somebody has to get Harold to my cabin up in the woods and keep him hidden there. That's your job, Julie. Get him there, keep him there, and don't let anybody know he is there. Darling, for both our sakes, say you'll do it.
Well, it means missing Bill Wentworth's party, but all right, I'll do it. Only, Andy, darling, this scheme of yours had better pay off.
So that's taken care of. Julie starts off for your secluded cabin in the mountains with Harold Farrington. You promise to join her the following night. The next morning, you get busy on the phone, ostensibly trying to trace Farrington. Among others, you call your old friend, the theatrical critic, Paul Milton.
Yes, Paul, I am worried about Harold Farrington. It's no gag. I know he called you yesterday and threatened to commit suicide, and I think he meant it. I'm really worried about him. Okay, I'll keep looking. See you soon, Paul. We'll have a drink together.
Paul Milton's skepticism is typical, and it's just what you want. Last of all, you call another old friend, Captain Harry Banning, in the Bureau of Missing Persons.
Oh, now, Harry, I'm not trying to drum up a story. Farrington really is missing. I want you to put out a missing persons notice on... Well, if that's the way you feel about it, I'll have to find him without any help from the police.
You hang up, and you're pleased, Andy. Very pleased. That evening, you catch the train for the little town of Ridge Gap, where your cabin is located. At the Ridge Gap station, you slip away into the darkness without being noticed. It's bitterly cold, but you walk the 2 miles to your cabin. There you find Julie and Harold Farrington having a drink in the living room. After the necessary greetings, you waste no time in getting down to business.
Well, kids, we're rolling. The editors are beginning to believe in your suicide, Harold.
Andy, I'm not so sure that the suicide is a good publicity angle. The more I think about it...
Of course it's a good angle. Isn't it, Julie?
Why, of course it is, Harold. Why, it'll get the critics to writing long, appreciative articles about you. The kinds of thing the producers all notice.
Well, maybe, but I still think...
Harold, you hired me to do the thinking. Now, listen. You write me a long letter of farewell. Understand?
A letter of farewell. Well, I could do that with the quotations from my great plays, Macbeth, Hamlet.
That's it, Harold?
Yes. I'll take the letter back to New York with me. I'll call all the critics. I'll get a couple of them to rush up here with me. Now, just before we get here, you take 1 sleeping tablet. Then pretend to be unable to wake until we've worked over you for at least half an hour. You got it?
Yes, of course. I could do that.
And look absolutely on the level. Tomorrow evening, your name will be headlines from coast to coast.
Well, if you're sure, Andy.
I'm positive. Now, sit down at my desk and start writing that suicide note. And be sure to apologize to me for using my cabin. You understand, Harold?
You leave Harold Farrington busy writing the suicide letter. You take Julie into the next room to tell her the rest of your plan.
And as soon as he finishes that letter, Harold's going to die. You understand that, don't you, Julie?
Die? Andy, you didn't say anything about that when you sent me up here with him. I'm not going to have anything to do with murder.
Harold will drink himself to death in another 6 months. What difference does it make if he goes now? It means $500,000 to us, me and you. It's perfectly safe. By now, half New York knows Harold was threatening to kill himself.
You go on talking, persuading her.
Rich.
And when you want to be, you can be very, very persuasive.
Maybe a few hours.
At last, Julie gives in to your scheme.
All right, Andy, I'll do it. But let's get it over with quickly.
You go back into the living room. Harold has finished writing his farewell to you and the world, and he's reading it aloud with great self-appreciation.
Out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. Oh, there you are, Andy. Listen, I think this is rather good.
He begins at the beginning and reads the whole letter to you. It's what you want, exactly. As he reads, you busy yourself fixing him a drink, and into the drink, you pour the contents of a small bottle. Harold Farrington finishes his letter and waits for your applause.
That's splendid, Harold. Simply terrific.
It nearly made me cry, just listening to it.
I think without undue modesty, one could say it's good theater. Oh, is that a drink for me, Andy?
Well, it isn't for anybody else, Harold.
Thank you. I've earned this drink. Well, bottoms up.
He drinks, and in 5 minutes, it's all over. For one last instant, he stares at you accusingly, then his eyes close, and he falls forward on the desk.
He's dead. Perfect, Julie. Couldn't have worked out better.
Oh, now what, Andy? Back to New York and come find him tomorrow or the next day?
No. It's all going to be settled tonight.
Tonight?
Yes. There's a very special reason why. I owe some money. But tomorrow I've got to be able to prove I can pay it from the inheritance. Now, we're going to drive to Ridge Gap, have dinner, and pretend we're on our way up here from New York. Then we arrive here, find Harold dead, and phone the sheriff. That's all there is to it.
Andy, now wait a minute.
What is it?
What time is Harold supposed to have died?
Well, sometime last night when I was in New York.
That's impossible. His body, it'll still be warm when the sheriff gets here. The sheriff will know that Harold must have died this evening.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot that. I can't wait till tomorrow. Just can't. I got it.
What?
It's cold out. Only about 15 above zero.
Yeah.
We put Harold out on the terrace, chair and all, for half an hour. By then he'll be cold, plenty cold. It'll seem as if he died hours ago.
Swiftly, you and Julie lift the chair in which Harold Farrington sits. You carry it out on the terrace in the bitterly cold wind. There you leave Harold to cool a bit. Back in the house, you set everything straight, remove all evidence of Julie's having been there. You wait half an hour, 45 minutes. Then you carry Harold back in, chair and all, and pose him properly in front of the desk where his touching suicide note waits. The picture is perfect.
Cold enough now. Feel his forehead.
He's like ice.
Yeah. That's because he died last night, my dear. Now let's go. Have dinner at the village, make sure we're seen, then come up here and discover Harold.
Your program goes off without a hitch, Andy. In the village of Ridge Gap, you make sure witnesses see you eating. You tell the waitress you're just on your way to the cabin. Then you drive up and find poor Harold's body. In half an hour, the sheriff is there with the coroner. The sheriff looks around, listens to your story, reads the letter Harold so obligingly wrote, and nods.
Yep. Certainly is plain enough story, Mr. Marlowe. Poor fella, down on his luck, decided to end it all. You say you gave him a key to this cabin 6 months ago?
Yes, that's right, Sheriff. 6 months ago, I did a publicity campaign for him, and he used to come up here to work out our plans. I gave him a key then, and he kept it.
And poor Harold crept here to die in hiding.
That's how it goes. Well, I guess there's no use our hanging around any longer. Poor fella's stone cold. Means he died last night or this morning, I guess. Well, Doc, let's phone Williams the undertaker and get this over with.
I guess we better wait a mite before we call the undertaker, Sheriff.
Wait? What for?
There's something a bit peculiar here.
Peculiar? Well, what do you mean, Doc?
Let's feel this fellow's forehead. Mighty cold, isn't it?
That's right. Cold as ice. Shows he's been dead quite some time.
Yes, everybody knows that. It's in every detective story. His forehead was as cold as ice. Wish I had $1 for each time I've read that.
Yes, but I'm afraid you don't get my point. You see, a dead body can only cool off to the temperature of the room it's in.
Oh, well, what are you getting at?
Just this. I took the temperature of this suicide. His body temperature's only 45 degrees.
45 degrees?
That's right.
Well, how could that be, Doc? This room is 70 degrees. Tain't possible.
Andy.
Be quiet, Julie.
You're right, Sheriff. It isn't possible. Unless this suicide walked outdoors and practically froze himself, he came back in, sat down, and waited for us. And I don't think he did.
What you're saying, Doc, is, it's not suicide. It's murder. And I reckon we got the murderers right here in this room with us. Well, folks, how about it?
This is the mysterious traveler again. Dear me, it's a cold wind that blows nobody good, isn't it? Yes, Andy and Julie were persuaded to confess. It wasn't hard to get a confession, since each rushed in to blame the other. Such a clever scheme, too. Not a flaw in it. If only Andy hadn't been in such a hurry to cool the corpse off. The moral is, never rush a corpse. Let it take its own time, even if it kills you. Oh, that reminds me of next week's story, The Hot Seat. It's about a dim-witted fellow with but one thing in mind, revenge. However, his weapon was not the knife, gun, or poison. It was... Oh, you have to get off here. I'm sorry. But I'm sure we'll meet again. I take this same train every week at this same time.
You have just heard The Mysterious Traveler, a series of dramas of the strange and terrifying. The role of the mysterious traveler is played by Maurice Tarplin. This is Jack Farron speaking. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Yes, sir. May I help you?
I'd like 2 of those, please.
Hot dogs? Yes, sir.
And 3 of those, and 1 of those, and 5 bars of these, and a cup of that nice hot liquid.
Coffee. Coming right up.
Oh, and 2 bags of those peculiar white puffy material.
You mean our crunchy popcorn? Shall I wrap that for you, sir?
Oh, that's all right. My saucer's just outside.
They come from miles to enjoy our intermission.
Scrubbing mildew stains is a monstrous job, so instead, spray on Tilex. With Tilex Instant Mildew Stain Remover, mildew stains vanish with no scrubbing. Tilex, it makes a monstrous job easy.
Oh, yes. What happened seemed accidental. The man who opened the elevator door and plunged 10 stories to his death. The hotel fire that reduced 5 people to charred ash. And Edward Turner, who died when his car smashed into a pillar. But why was the same man at the scene of each tragedy? A man in a velvet hat. Hello, creeps. This is Peter Lorre, opening the doors of the Mystery Playhouse. Would you like to hear the story of a mad killer who murdered with one hand while holding the Bible in the other? Sound intriguing, huh? Well, if it does, stay with us for the next 30 minutes as we bring you an exciting mystery tale by Jerome and Harold Prince. These talented brothers have evolved a strange and stirring story that should keep you on the edge of your seats throughout. So settle yourselves in them now as we raise the curtain on The Man in a Velvet Hat.
The beginning, New York City. An office building in the financial district just off Wall Street. Sometime after closing hours, Tuesday night, December 15th. An office Christmas party for out-of-town salesmen. The party is being held on the 19th floor in room 1906.
When the great listen and children listen, so hear bells through the song. No, fellas, no, I really gotta go. No kidding. Stick around, will you? It's early yet.
About 11 o'clock, yes, Smitty.
Leave it to Smitty, will you? The louse has got a date somewhere. Oh, no. No, fellas, I'm going straight home to the little woman.
Oh, you.
I love you, kid, but oh, my wife. Well, Merry Christmas, you guys.
Merry Christmas, Smitty. Stick with it, boy.
Oh,
Stick
well,
with it,
Turn the lights off in this corridor. How do you like that? Where's that night bell for that elevator? Ah, where's that elevator? Doorbell indicator. Well, here's the elevator right here. Just open the door and...
Sudden death in an elevator shaft. That was at 11 p.m. Tuesday, December 15th. 9 hours later, 8 a.m. Wednesday, December 16th. A letter is delivered to John Reynolds, the ranking New York newspaper columnist.
Here's a screwy letter, Mike. My dear Mr. Reynolds, it was my whim 2 hours ago to take home with me to eternity my son, known in this life as Fred Smith. Well, what do you know about that? Was it signed? No, but look. Capital M on my and me. Just as though the guy writing the letter thought that he was God. Hey.
Yeah?
I just think I'll put in a routine check. See if any guy named, Fred Smith was knocked off in the last couple of hours.
The following day, December 17th, at a downtown hotel.
3 alarmer!
That's a lousy note, hardly a week before Christmas.
Poor devils. 5 dead, the chief figured. All from some dope who has to smoke cigarettes in bed in a flyer-trapped flea bag of a hotel.
Mike. Yeah? Mike, look. Another letter. Listen. My dear Mr. Reynolds, 5 have been purified by flames and are at peace within my heart. Hey. Mike, have you any word of any big fires today?
Why, yeah, there was a 3-alarmer in a hotel downtown, just east of Broadway.
One day later, December 18th. It is night. 2nd Avenue is wet and slippery with rain. Then...
What happened? The car, see? Into the pillar.
My dear Mr. Reynolds, in a swift chariot I have taken Edward Tucker home to glory. No signature. The 3rd in 3 days, and if it's like the others, it's on the beam. This looks like a story.
The following day, December 19th, John Reynolds sets out to investigate.
I'm Reynolds of the New York Dispatch. Is this the building where Fred Smith was killed 4 days ago?
That's right.
Were you on the night elevator the night Smith fell down the shaft?
Yep. Drunk as a coot he must have been.
Listen to me. On the night that Smith was killed, did you take anybody up to that office Christmas party who didn't belong there? A stranger?
No, sir.
Are you sure?
Sure, I'm sure.
Now, look. See this $50 bill?
$50? Gee.
Go on, take it. It's yours.
Gosh.
Now come clean. Who was the stranger?
Oh, maybe you mean the tall guy who came in at a 11:15.
That's the one.
Well, I tell him the party's on the 19th floor. He doesn't answer, just nods. So I take him to the 19th and I let him out.
What'd he look like?
Ah, you got me, Mr. Reynolds. I didn't...
You must have seen his hat. What kind of a hat did he wear?
Oh, yeah. Black. It was old and fuzzy.
Fuzzy, like old velvet?
If you say so, Mr. Reynolds.
If I say so, no. Was it like velvet?
Okay, Mr. Reynolds, okay. A velvet hat. Yeah, a man in a velvet hat.
You were one of the firemen working in that fire in this hotel. Was there anything suspicious?
Just a guy smoking a cigarette in bed. That's suspicious. Pure accident.
Did you happen to see a man in a black velvet hat hanging around outside the ropes when the fire was blazing?
Black velvet hat?
That's it. Black velvet hat.
It was raining that night, and...
Sure it was.
Yeah. There was a guy.
And he was wearing a black velvet hat. Do you remember, Fireman? Do you remember? Madam, they tell me you were a witness to that auto crash down the street last night.
That's right. What about it?
Was anybody else around last night when that car slammed into the pillar?
What if there was?
Look, did you happen to know who the man driving that car was? He was Edward Tucker, who was champion midget auto driver. Now, it wouldn't be easy for him to lose control of his car.
It was wet. It had been raining.
Sure. Now tell me, were there any other witnesses around?
A man?
A man. He must have been wearing,
Well, a raincoat and a hat.
A hat. What? Do you remember what kind of a hat he was wearing? Was it dark?
Dark? Yeah. Almost black, yeah.
Maybe kind of fuzzy?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, fuzzy. Yeah. Almost like it was, velvet. Yeah, a velvet hat.
And in John Reynolds' column in the New York Dispatch the next morning, December 20th.
3 deaths. 3 accidental deaths. But were they accidental? In every case, an eyewitness tells us of seeing a man in a velvet hat, an apparent madman. A man whose paranoia assumes the form of God's substitution. A man who writes letters claiming the deaths were caused by him. Are the police aware of the reign of this madman? And is the madman lying, or has he done murder? But if murder has been done, and if this man is a murderer, he's a murderer such as the world has never known. Or perhaps such as the world has always known, but never seen. There's no motive for any of his crimes, no evidence of lust or of envy, of passion or of gain. Certainly, if this man is not a god, he has not only successfully adopted the posturing of one, but the psychic attributes as well. Where he walks, death walks. This man may be death himself.
And all New York reads John Reynolds' column and wonders. Then, in the next 3 days, come 3 more deaths, 3 more letters, and 3 more reports in John Reynolds' column telling of eyewitnesses seeing the man in the velvet hat at the scene of each crime. And now comes panic. A great city is hushed and frightened, waiting to see who is the next to die. Then on December 23rd, the climax. It was late afternoon at the office for the police commissioner. Chief Magruder confers with Detective Sergeant Martin.
Well, I haven't much to report, Chief. This is the wackiest case I've seen.
Never mind that. Get to the facts, Martin.
What facts? So we're supposed to find a guy wearing a velvet hat, so we can't find anything. Where he lives, his name, nothing. Just doesn't seem to exist.
Perhaps he doesn't exist.
Well, yeah, well, tell it to New York City. Tell it to the newspapers.
Hello?
Now, look, Chief, don't you think it'd be better if we told the reporters that we've been getting the same letters that this columnist Reynolds has? Let them know we're at least hep to what's going on.
Yeah, perhaps you're right.
Chief Magruder. Chief Magruder.
Take it easy, Miss Munn.
But it's happened again. The man in the velvet hat.
What? Where? How? When?
Crowded movie theater. A woman screamed and shouted, "Look out, the man in the velvet hat." And there was a panic.
Panic? Is anybody killed?
16. 16 dead. Maybe more.
16. Good Lord.
Chief Magruder's office. Yes, sir. Just a minute.
Look, Chief, I think I better go out.
Chief Magruder, it's the mayor.
The mayor? Martin, you stay here a minute. Yes, Mr. Mayor. How'd you hear about it so fast? Well, I suppose the newspapers will make a big... But I'm doing everything I can. Oh, Reynolds, eh? Well, why should he... Yes, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Mr. Mayor. Goodbye.
What goes, Chief?
Plenty. Whole town is upside down. Relatives are jamming the morgue, trying to identify the dead. The Citizens Committee is planning a mass meeting tomorrow to demand action. Every newspaper in town is roasting the city administration.
What do we do, Chief?
You do nothing till you hear from me. Miss Myers, my hat.
Where you going?
To the mayor's office. The mayor and I and that columnist Reynolds are going to have a little conference.
Reynolds?
Yeah. The mayor seems to think Reynolds knows more about this thing than the police department.
Answer me this, Magruder. Answer me this. Has there been a murder? Are these accidents murders?
Maybe there aren't any murders, Mr. Mayor. Not in the ordinary sense.
I believe there is, Magruder.
Just a minute, Reynolds. Your Honor, except for the panic at the movie house, every death was accidental or natural as sure as we three are in this room.
What do you mean? What about the man in the velvet hat?
Put the screws on some of the people who say they saw him, and he'd disappear like that.
Forget it. To the people of this town, he's real. And this panic, cold panic, right in the middle of the holidays. The people are scared blue.
May I say something, Mr. Mayor?
Well, certainly, that's why you're here.
Look, the way I see it, either it's all a hoax or there is a man in a velvet hat.
That's right. So either prove the hoax or catch the man.
All right. I think we can do one or the other. If Reynolds will help.
Well, certainly I'll help. How?
I'm going to challenge the man in the velvet hat, and Reynolds is going to publish that challenge. I'm going to say I don't think he's a god. I'm going to say I don't even think he's a good criminal. Anybody can boast of a murder after it's happened, but only a master criminal can boast of a murder before it's happened and get away with it. I'm going to challenge him to name his next murder before it happens. And Reynolds will publish my challenge.
Okay, Magruder. But I predict that he'll accept your challenge, and that when he does, you will not catch him.
And in his newspaper column, December 24th, John Reynolds says,
A challenge from the police commissioner of New York City to the man in the velvet hat. Quote, I challenge you to prove that you are a criminal. I think you're a fraud. If you're not a fraud, you will announce in advance the time and place of your next killing, murder, mercy, death, whatever you call it. Unquote. Hello, this is Reynolds of the Dispatch. Give me the commissioner. Please hurry.
Well, just a minute, Mr. Reynolds. Hold on.
Yeah?
Magruder, Reynolds.
Yeah, Reynolds.
I got an answer from the man in the velvet hat.
You got... What did he say?
He says at precisely 9 o'clock p.m. on Christmas Eve, a man will die poisoned in front of the Times building on Times Square. He says, quote, After this, I will move again in silence, for only those without faith need signs. That's all.
9 o'clock Christmas Eve in front of the Times building by poison.
That's what he says.
Okay. Thanks.
What time is it now?
It's 4 minutes till 9, Chief.
4 minutes, huh?
It's darn cold out here. Why do they keep playing that same tune all the time? That was popular 2 years ago. Did they write any new Christmas songs?
It's a good song.
Stop chattering each other, both of you guys. Tell your nerves to lie down.
Oh, my nerves are all laying down and purring.
All right, then, shut up. Keep your eyes on your watch. Now, let's see. Simon and Thompson in front of the Times building. Burke and LaMantia in the lobby. Rowan over there across the street on 7th Avenue, and the whole homicide squad scattered all over the theatrical district. All right, I'd like to have doubled the number of guys standing around just in case.
Now, it's your nerves need to lie down, Chief.
Precisely at 9 o'clock on Christmas Eve, a man will die poisoned in front of the Times building.
Hey, Chief, where's the front of the Times building? Where we are here in Times Square, or maybe is it a block back there on 42nd Street?
After this, I will move again in silence. For only those without faith need signs. Martin.
Yeah?
You got a good reason why he didn't type out his last note on a typewriter like he usually does? Why does he have to write this one in that Bible lettering?
Search me.
Maybe he's God. Maybe he likes to write like the Bible.
Yeah, and maybe I'll break you and send you out to Pound P on Staten Island. How much time, Martin?
Less than 30 seconds if the guy is prompt and keeping his appointments.
Hey, Chief.
Huh?
Look at that guy. See?
Which guy?
Standing over there on the curb on 7th Avenue.
Guy has no hat on. He's got no coat on him. Carrying his coat under his arm.
On a night like this, he's qualifying for the booby hatch.
Here he comes. Watch him. He's coming through those cars. Keep your eye on him.
He's coming right at us.
Glory, hallelujah!
He stopped.
Yeah. Hey, look at him. What's he doing? Swallowing poison, you fool. Grab him, quick.
Stop that guy!
Keep the crowd away. Keep them away.
That is a doornail, Chief.
Yeah, isn't he, though?
Here's his coat, Chief. It's a brown raincoat, inside out. Look at it.
Something in his pocket, huh?
Well, I'll be... It's a velvet hat.
Hey, Chief.
Yeah?
Here. Simon picked it up. Said he dropped it on the sidewalk just before he drank a poison.
Give me it. It's a letter.
His last.
Let those without faith disbelieve now.
You're quite a hero today, Chief Magruder.
Hero, eh?
Here's John Reynolds' column. Did you read it?
No, let's see it. The people of New York City owe a vote of thanks to their police commissioner for his effective... That's right. As for the man in the velvet hat, he was clearly a religious fanatic. There were never any crimes. There were merely accidents. Then the man in the velvet hat sent his letters to both the police commissioner and your columnist, attempting to say he had caused these accidents. Finally, when challenged by Magruder to prove his existence, he poisoned himself rather than admit he was not possessed with supernatural powers. Nice open and shut case, eh, Miss Myers?
Yes, sir. Oh, incidentally, the mayor wants you to call him. He wants to thank you personally.
The devil with the mayor. Get that columnist, John Reynolds, on the phone. Tell him to get over here right away. I want to talk to him. It was a queer case, Magruder, wasn't it? Not really knowing? Yeah. You know, I had the right hunch from the beginning. Kept it to myself, though. You know, it's an interesting study, lunacy. You think so? The funny thing, though, about the lunatic... I mean, you never did find out who he really was, did you? Now, look here, Reynolds. I had you pegged from the start. What do you mean you had me pegged from the start? You heard me. Now look here, Magruder. Are you implying the man in the velvet hat and I were working together? No. There never was a man in a velvet hat. You wrote those letters yourself. I wrote... Why should I? What motive could I have? Plenty. You write a newspaper column, don't you? You gotta keep it filled and get it read, don't you? Now, look. I'm an old-fashioned cop, Reynolds. I ask myself, who gains? In this case, you did. You created the man in the velvet hat out of whole cloth. You wrote his letters and mailed them to me. And through coercion, bribery, or suggestion, you convinced a lot of witnesses they actually saw this phantom at the scene of each accident. This is a gag, a rib. You can't be serious. And maybe we found the typewriters you wrote the letters on, and maybe we didn't. You can be sure that if we haven't, we will. It's a beautiful theory, Magruder. But spoiled by an ugly fact. There was a man in a velvet hat. And you haven't. Dead. No, Reynolds. There wasn't any man in a velvet hat. What? How do you know? Because the man we found dead, the man who took his life in front of the Times building, was released from an insane asylum only one day before you published my challenge. He couldn't have been the man in the velvet hat all those other times, not while he was in the asylum. Now look, Magruder, don't let your theory run away with your head. You know darn well... Don't tell me what I know darn well. You wrote that Biblican script. Then you got this poor fellow who killed himself on Times Square. You took advantage of his insanity to coerce him, cajole him, persuade him in some way to do what he did. You're out of your mind.
Chief, excuse me.
What do you want, Kachowski?
Well, Chief, here's the guy we're looking for. Second-hand typewriter store, man, in Brooklyn.
That's the man. That's him. That's the man.
What are you talking about? You're crazy.
I tell you, 7 or 8 times he comes into my store, types something out, each time on a different typewriter. Always letters, since he's trying them out.
The man's lying. He never saw me.
That's the man, all right. I remember him. That's
Okay. Calm down. All right, Reynolds. What have you got to say now? Now, listen, Magruder, listen to me. When I began this whole thing, I never dreamed it would cause... You never dreamed it would cause the death of 16 people in a crowded theater. And the insane man you persuaded to take poison. That was murder, too, Reynolds. Murder? Well, they'll electrocute me. Magruder, you're the only one that knows. You can hush this up. Give me a break, will you? Well, what do you say? Look, I've got money. I'll make you a rich man. What do you say, Magruder? What do you say? I say you're gonna burn, Reynolds. You're gonna burn.
There, my friends, ingenious solution to tonight's Mystery Playhouse performance, The Man in a Velvet Hat. And the moral? Don't make up a man who wasn't there. You might end up in the electric chair. Pardon me, please. The creep who writes this stuff twisted my arm. Well, we've just got time to look in on the green room where our players are rehearsing the next bedtime story. Follow me, please. Come.
You've got to get hold of yourself, Geraldine.
I can't help it, Doctor. You see, it starts every night. About this time.
What starts?
The music. David's last composition. I hear it being played on a piano. And the notes seem to come from the old house, the house where David died in the fire.
Well, perhaps someone is playing that piece on the piano. Someone on the island.
No, there's only one other house out here, and those people are away. And the dog. The dog keeps howling all night long.
What dog?
I don't know. There's no dog on the island, but David and I did have a dog. You remember? He stayed with David the night of the fire. He died with him because David was too ill to get out of bed. There it is again.
Amazing. That's a real dog. Somewhere on this island.
Oh. Do you think so?
Why, of course. Probably some stray got across the bridge or swam over from the shore.
Well, you see, Oh, excuse me, Doctor.
Sir.
Hello?
Hello. Mrs. Geraldine Reeves.
Yes, speaking. Who is it?
Listen.
Good heavens!
You have 4 hours to live, Mrs. Reeves. 4 hours to live.
What? What did you say? Hello? Hello?
What's the matter, Geraldine?
The music. The same music. I heard it again.
What?
Over the phone. Someone's playing it on the piano.
It must be some sort of a prank.
No. A man spoke to me. He said I have 4 hours to live.
4 hours to... Here. Let me have that phone.
No, it's no use. He's rung off.
Well, we might be able to trace the call. Hello. Operator.
Somebody's trying to kill me.
Hello, operator. Operator.
What's wrong, Doctor?
I'm afraid the wires have been cut. We'd better get into my car and drive into town right away.
Yes, it isn't safe for me to stay here another minute.
Can't understand it. The motor won't turn over. Somebody must have meddled with this car while we were in the house.
Well, try my car, Doctor.
I think perhaps I'd better. Is it in the garage?
Yes, I Great heavens, it's gone. The garage is empty. The car's been stolen.
Now, let's not lose our heads, Geraldine. But... We're not completely cut off yet. We can't use a car. We can still walk.
But it's almost a mile to the bridge, and the road is so dark down along the water.
It won't be too dark with a flashlight. We can go down through the woods to the edge of the water and walk along the shore.
Oh, wait a minute.
What's the matter?
I just remembered. David's brother's driving out here tonight.
Are they?
Yes, and his wife, Laura. They said they'd be here by 8:30, and if we wait for them, they can take it back in their car. What do you think, Doctor?
That's safer than trying to make it alone. If we wait right here, perhaps we can watch the bridge and see them coming. For heaven's sake, Geraldine. What are you staring at?
The bridge, Doctor. The bridge, look! This end of it's been washed out.
Something peculiar going on here, don't you think? I think that woman has good reason to be worried, too. Sounds to me like the beginning of just the kind of story we like around here. Nice and creepy, huh? Why, you'll have to wait until next time for the whole thing. That old scaremaster of ceremonies, the gory goon of the inner sanctum, Raymond, will be on hand. So you'll be here too, huh? Won't you? When Raymond, the giggling ghoul, tells you the spine-tingling tale. Voice on a wire. This is Peter Lorre closing the doors of the Mystery Playhouse. Good night. Sleep tight. This is the Armed Forces Radio Service.